The moment the ATP Finals trophy settled in Jannik Sinner's hands, the tennis world erupted with celebration, but what happened after the interviews ended was something entirely different, something far more personal, intimate, and meaningful, because as soon as his final press obligations were completed, Sinner didn't head into another training session, another schedule meeting, or another press event. Instead, he boarded a private flight straight to the Maldives together with the one person who had been there through every injury, every doubt, every sleepless night, Laila Hasanovic. There was no announcement, no public confirmation, no hint to the media, just two people escaping the noise of the tennis world to reconnect after a long, exhausting season. And that is where our story begins. Their arrival in the Maldives was nothing short of surreal. A warm ocean breeze swept across the wooden pier as Jannik and Laila stepped out of the boat that carried them from the main island to their secluded resort. The turquoise waters glimmered under the late afternoon sun, and for the first time in months, Jannik looked completely at peace. His rackets were stored away, his physio equipment was left behind, his phone was turned off beside him. Laila walked barefoot on the sun-warmed planks, her long white dress catching the wind as she laughed softly at something he whispered. Unlike the cameras and crowds of Europe, here there were no reporters, no questions, no pressure, just two young people finally catching their breath after a season that tested them in every possible way. The resort staff welcomed them with flower garlands, and even then, Jannik looked slightly embarrassed, still humble, still shy, still not used to being treated like a superstar. Laila nudged him playfully. "Get used to it," she teased. "You're a champion now." He smiled, pulling her gently close as they walked toward their private overwater villa. Inside the villa, the ambience felt like a slice of paradise. Tall glass windows opened directly onto the ocean, allowing sunlight to spill across the wooden floors. Soft music played from hidden speakers, the scent of coconut and saltwater blended perfectly with the warm air drifting in. Laila wandered through the villa first, touching the carved wooden shelves, opening the sliding doors that led to a private deck, dipping her fingers into the crystal blue water below. Jannik watched her from the doorway, smiling quietly, the kind of smile that only appears when someone feels fully, completely at home. "Jannik," she called, turning back toward him with wide eyes, "you have to see this." He stepped forward, walking onto the deck beside her. The ocean stretched endlessly in every direction, the horizon glowed gold as the sun began to set. A gentle ripple glided across the water as if the world itself were breathing. "It's beautiful," he whispered. Laila leaned her head on his shoulder. "No," she said softly. "This is beautiful." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The world simply paused, and for the first time since the season began, Jannik closed his eyes and let the stress fall away. The first morning of their trip brought a rare sight: Jannik Sinner sleeping until noon. For a man who usually woke at dawn for training sessions, waking late felt like a rebellion, a luxury, and a necessity all at once. Laila sat beside him on the bed, brushing his hair with her fingers. "You needed this," she whispered, smiling as he lazily opened one eye. He looked around slowly, still half asleep. "Where's breakfast?" he mumbled. She laughed. "It's on the deck." "I didn't want to wake you." He sat up, rubbing his neck awkwardly. "Did I snore?" "Like a tractor," she nodded. Jannik groaned, but when they stepped onto the deck and saw the breakfast table, fresh fruit, warm pastries, eggs, coffee, juices, the quiet intimacy of the moment washed away every worry. They ate slowly, talking about everything except tennis, future dreams, travel plans, small memories from childhood. Jannik shared stories he rarely told, about training in cold Italian mornings, doubting his abilities, wanting to quit at times. Laila listened with complete presence, her eyes soft, her smile encouraging, and by the time breakfast ended, Jannik felt lighter than he had in months. Later in the afternoon, they rented paddle boards and drifted across the calm water. Laila moved confidently, balancing with ease, but Jannik, competitive as ever, tried to race her. "Slow down," she shouted, laughing as he nearly tipped over. "I'm not losing," he yelled back, stabilizing himself just in time, but eventually, Jannik pretended to wobble dramatically, falling into the water with an exaggerated splash. Laila shrieked, nearly losing her balance. "You did that on purpose," she accused. He resurfaced, grinning. "Maybe." She jumped in after him, and soon they were swimming beneath the warm sun, their laughter echoing across the empty ocean. A moment later, Laila wrapped her arms around his neck, resting her forehead against his. "You look happy," she said softly. "I am," he whispered back. With you, I really am. The ocean floated around them like a gentle cradle, the world outside didn't exist, only here, only now, only them. The evening brought a new chapter to their trip, one filled with warmth, confession, and quiet vulnerability. As the sky turned rose gold and the stars began to appear, Jannik and Laila sat together on the deck, wrapped in a blanket as they watched the moonlight shimmer on the waves. For a long time, they didn't speak. The silence wasn't uncomfortable, it felt sacred. Finally, Laila whispered, "You know, I'm proud of you. Not just for winning. For everything you overcame this year." Jannik swallowed, emotions rising unexpectedly. "Sometimes I felt like I wasn't good enough," he admitted quietly. "Like I didn't deserve to be where I am." "That's not true," she said quickly, her voice firm. "You earned everything. You fought for everything." He looked at her, eyes soft but heavy. "I couldn't do it without you. You kept me steady. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself." Laila reached for his hand, intertwining her fingers with his, "And I always will." He kissed her forehead gently. Their bond wasn't built on luxury vacations, trophies, or glamour. It was built on understanding, on loyalty, on the long nights, the tough losses, the moments of doubt. Moments like this, raw, honest, and deeply intimate, were worth more than any title. The next day, they decided to explore a nearby coral reef. The resort arranged a small private boat that took them into deeper waters, where colorful fish swirled beneath the surface like living jewels. Jannik dove first. Adjusting his mask and waving for Laila to join him. Underwater, the world transformed into a dream, silent, vast, shimmering with life. At one point, Laila touched his hand underwater and pointed toward a sea turtle gliding gracefully through the reef. Jannik nodded, his eyes wide with wonder. When they resurfaced, both were breathless, not from fatigue, but from sheer awe. "It's magical," Laila whispered. "It really is," he agreed. For once, the chaos of the tennis world felt far behind them. That night, the resort staff surprised them with a private candlelit dinner on a floating platform anchored above shallow water. Soft lanterns swayed in the gentle wind. A violinist played quietly from a distance. The air smelled of jasmine and sea salt. As they ate, the world felt impossibly perfect. Midway through the meal, Laila rested her chin on her hand, studying Jannik's face. "You look different," she said. "How?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. "Peaceful. Calm. Happy." He shrugged, smiling. "Maybe that's what happens when you take the season's weight off your shoulders." She shook her head gently. "No. It's what happens when you let yourself enjoy the moment." He reached across the table, brushing her hand with his thumb. "Then I want more moments like this," he said softly. Her smile widened. "Me too." The night was still young, but for them, it already felt timeless. Their trip continued with more laughter, more adventures, and more memories. Sunset walks, ocean swims, long conversations that stretched into the early hours of the morning. But perhaps the most meaningful moment came on their final night. They returned to the deck, where soft lights glowed against the wooden floor, and the ocean whispered beneath them. Jannik wrapped his arms around Laila from behind, resting his chin gently on her shoulder. "I needed this trip more than I realized," he murmured. She leaned back into him. "I know. The season was hard. The pressure was non-stop. But you made it. You grew. You proved everything you needed to prove." He kissed her cheek. "And now I have one more thing to look forward to," he said. "What's that?" she asked. He turned her gently to face him. "More time with you." Her eyes softened. "You'll always have that." The final night in the Maldives wasn't just a vacation memory. It was a reminder of why Jannik fought so hard, why he pushed through injury, pressure, and doubt, because at the end of every challenge was someone waiting for him, someone who believed in him, someone who loved him.